requesting. No, we're not. Yes, we are. Welcome. We're going to try and squeeze out a couple quick league matches. Again, with the youth. I think it's possible we end up getting... we're expecting a call at some point. So it's possible. But, yeah. I think, like I was saying, I think in the last video, honestly not sure I'm going to get a chance to play these. So this is, unfortunately, the best I got. The best window I got. A window that may or may not continue to exist, as opposed to one that simply doesn't. So it is certainly been the challenge, to be honest, to find the time to play all the matches and to play some friendlies, to try tactics, to sort stuff out, to I don't know, to play the game basically, as you know, to play the to check the stuff, academy trials, whatever, training options, scouting pool, all that stuff. Like, it's quite the challenge, to be honest, to find the time. It's quite a bit, and I get that you don't have to check everything as much of it. Like, you don't have to do it properly, right? Like, you can just not check it every day. You can not think about anything much. You can certainly cruise through it all much faster. Once we're out of the training league, I think with the matches, the assistant manager could help us maybe in the future. Not necessarily awesome for the content to not play the matches, to be honest, but at least if we don't find the time, like, it's not like they won't get played. The assistant manager will still play them. Maybe there's some interesting content there to create about differences between playing the matches ourselves and how we set things up for the assistant manager, maybe, but on the whole it's not great. Obviously it's like people play the game to play the game, they don't play the game to not play the game, so to speak. So the assistant manager is more there for like an emergency backup thing as opposed to something you're leaning into heavily. But yeah, but we don't. But he only works after the training league, so for us for now, if we don't play the matches, they don't get played. So oh, great chance. And it's the sort of the thing is like, it's just if that defender's not right on him, like he is not now. So hopefully, yeah, he doesn't. Hopefully, we'll take a dribbling touch, but not to worry. I feel like on the whole, it's a good start. Oh, really good. 5 shots, eh? And I don't think any of those were sort of double shots either, like sort of one chance that resulted in multiple shots. It was just 5 distinct chances. Close. 6, okay. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's not guaranteed that this keeps going, but at the moment this is looking very good, even better. So yeah, it's not, yeah, I mean, I guess it is, from a content perspective, I guess there is something here. I mean, I definitely think the fact that, we'll see if we keep winning, obviously, it's could all just blow out the window in an instant by us losing a few matches in a row here, but as long as our youth team just continues winning, I do think there is something value here, like, there is something of value in that, like, if you do, you know, have a team that's good players, like if your players are better than the opposition, and you just have your team set up in a way to, you know, to leverage their strengths, and you don't make crappy decisions, then you can just win a lot. You don't necessarily have to be a mastermind, brilliant tactician to manipulate everything or whatever, right? You just have to not basically make a mess of it. So I do think that there's some sort of value here, because I think there is a, you know, to sort of just illustrate that just at the end of the day, like, you can do all sorts of stuff to try to do whatever, but like, tactics matter, players matter, and I think maybe a point that largely goes overlooked to some degree is that they're the same thing. at the end of the day, there isn't really tactics and players. The players are intrinsically part of the tactics. Like the tactics, the players are. You have a formation, you have instructions, you have roles, whatever. But at the end of the day, you also have players, and the players are just a part of. They're part of it. The players are part of the tactics. They're not distinctively separate entities. It's like and if you're sort of viewing it through that lens, then you are missing out on something a lot. I think you're missing out on a lot of scope to get the most out of your team. Basically, a lot of scope. You're missing out on a lot of match results. That's what it comes down to if you're viewing it through that lens. So, because it isn't like the reason why we will hopefully win every match here is not just because our players are better. It's because of that. It's because of our tactic. It's because of our tactic as well. It's because we're getting the most out of them. It's because we're exploiting their strengths. But that ultimately, because we're leaning heavily into our strikers and centre halves, but that's all part of the tactic, and the players are part of the tactic. So, at the end of the day, better players are better because they're better at doing whatever, right? They're better at doing some things, and unless you're leveraging that, then it kind of doesn't. You're losing a lot of the advantage from having better players if you're not leveraging what they're good at. You're not leveraging their strengths. It is hugely possible to have extreme consistency in this game, but it requires an environment like what our youth team has. Really, I mean, I'm saying hugely consistent. I'm talking about if you're talking about what basically going through a season and winning. I wouldn't necessarily say every match, but you know what I mean. You're winning like 90-something% of your matches. You're winning nearly all your matches. To sort of have that, like, you need to have this sort of environment. Basically, you need players better than the other players, and you need to integrate them as part of your tactics to get the most out of them as well. It isn't just enough to have better players. That's the thing. It's needed. It's needed, but it's not enough. It's enough to do well. It's enough to win more than you lose or whatever, for sure. Just ignore the tactics largely. Do whatever you want. Just have better players, and that will take you quite some distance, but only so far. That's the thing. And it certainly, you will have a lot of matches where you get a bit unlucky or whatever. It doesn't take much, basically. It doesn't take a lot of things to go wrong and for you to not win. And what you really want is a tactic and a team and a setup that can survive like crazy amounts of bad luck in a match and just still win anyway. It's just that you win 2-1 or whatever instead of 6-0. Alright, for now we might just focus on paying a bit of attention to the match, because there will come a point at some moment where we may just look to defend our one-goal lead. The other really interesting part about, just to really illustrate how consistent everything, the consistency with the results, in a way, it's really interesting. I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting to be aware of, let's say, that our goalkeeper is really bad as well. And obviously, there we go. And we're sort of just over the hump, I think. We are there now. There was always a chance that they might have a chance, and if they have a chance, then they may score a goal. So to some degree, like if you're only ever winning by 1 goal, then you can always not win. It's kind of obvious, obviously, but it's just worth bearing in mind. Always, no matter how much you're dominating a match, no matter how much anything, there is a massive difference in comfort for between a 1 goal lead and a 2 goal lead. And that, I guess, from a yes, captain obvious or whatever, but from a practical standpoint, that sort of extends for like when it's different for the youth because you don't have to worry about protecting players for injuries, but for the senior team it matters, right? Like you don't want to be subbing off your best players, starting centre halves, whatever, to when no matter how much you're dominating, if you're only up by 1 goal, maybe you do want to, but you need to factor that in. You need to effectively factor that in. See, they could have scored there. He fumbled a bit loose and wasn't a good first touch and whatever. But easily that could have just been different. They could have just scored. So that's kind of what we want, really. It's just, it doesn't matter if that happens. We just win anyway. Because sometimes it will just happen. That's the thing. Like, sometimes. Not every game, not every second game, not every whatever, but sometimes it will. Like 1 every 10, 1 out of 20. You're winning a game anyway, when maybe 1 out of 20 times you wouldn't have if you got some bad luck. That's effectively the fundamental point, the fundamental concept that I'm trying to get at. I'm sure I'm talking in circles a bit, but it's not an insignificant point, because our youth team, I should have paused to make this up. Yeah. Our youth team is just at this level now for this to be a clear concept that you can just see. You see it manifesting in front of yourself, match after match after match. We just win. Let's get straight into another match. So, and it's quite possible that, that at least to this degree, that we won't be able to illustrate this concept again. Because, the reason why youth is dominating so much is because, 1, the opposition is really, low level, and 2, we just have all these incredibly strong 21-year-olds that are all going to be 22 and not part of the youth team next season. So, and we may never have players as strong as that, at least for the purposes of the rest of this series. So this is a concept that we may be able to illustrate it to some degree again along this journey, but we will not be able to illustrate it to this degree likely again for the whole rest of the series. Like, in all likelihood, this is the most that any of our squads or teams or whatever at any point in this journey is going to completely dominate. So why I'm really trying to hammer home this concept now. That if you sort of, want to win every single game, or you having a team that's sort of dominating like this, and this is more of obviously a thing, like it's just nigh impossible to achieve this in the Masters League or Division 1 or whatever, but in lower divisions, it is possible. Like, it is possible that you can end up with a squad through whatever reason, especially in the case of youth. Especially. Because the thing is, the youth is choppy changing in nature, basically. You could have a youth team that's not particularly good because you're playing a whole bunch of 16-year-olds that is struggling to compete against much older players or whatever. But if you keep that group together and they develop well or whatever, when that group, when they all turn 21, you're just going to be so much better than everyone you're playing against. You could end up in this situation. So when you are, if you're trying to go for the idea that we are better and we do really well and we want to win every match, if that's your attitude, then that's why we're talking about this from that lens. Because this realistically is a team that I do feel like if we had this team together for the first... if we didn't have it and we still won 7 and drew 1, it's totally reasonable to say that we could have won all 8 if we had this team together I honestly think there's a chance that we will... There's a chance that we won't, but I honestly think there's a chance that we will win all the rest of these training league matches. We will win all of the next 8 training league matches. And if we had this team together from the beginning, that we very well could have won all of the first 8. Like, this is an environment where there is a It's not a guarantee whatsoever, but there is a chance, and not like a 1 in a million chance or a 1 in 100 chance, but like a 10% chance, a 20% chance, a 30% chance, a 40% chance, a 50% chance, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 50%, so not completely insignificant, but far from certain, that with this team in this league, we could have won every single match this season. It's like an actual possibility, and very rarely would that ever be true, like ever be a possibility in that realm of like, it's like, you know, not a 1 in a million or a 1 in 1,000 type of thing, but like a genuine, actual possibility. It's very, very rare that that would ever happen, basically. And, you know, obviously it's because we just know exactly what we're doing, and we're at the bottom. That's the thing. We're in a training league, and at the end of the day, we're not even playing against people at the moment, so there's nothing particularly, there's nothing particularly awesome about it or whatever. It's not like it's anything, how do you say, it's not necessarily like it's any kind of major achievement or anything like that. It's just for illustrative purposes, just trying to explain the concept that it's very difficult to ever be this good compared to your opponents. I'll pause it for a reason, because he got a knock. I think we will sell him. So, but all this being said, there are situations that can happen where it isn't, it isn't quite like this, but it isn't quite not like this. Like, you don't realistically have a chance to win every single game, but that doesn't, whatever, like, if you could win nearly all of them, if you could win 40 out of 48, let's say, you have a chance to do that. That's something that's way more achievable, let's say, as a general rule across the board, whatever division you're in over time. If you're good enough at the game, that's even possible in the Masters League, in my humble opinion. But in order to do that, this is one of those concepts you are going to have to apply, because there will be games where the correct decision is to not change anything, and that becomes more and more often the case. The better your team is, basically. But one of the big reasons why it helps to watch the matches. Understand your players. Watch the match. Know the types of chances that they typically score. Know the types of chances you typically miss. Because if you know all of this stuff, you have a much clearer idea exactly how unlucky you are, so to speak, or how unlucky you aren't. Is maybe the more important thing. Because if you are playing a match that you, in this example, let's say, like, and you are creating a bunch of chances, but they're all chances that you know that you typically wouldn't be scoring with those nature of chances with those players. That matters. Versus if you created a bunch of chances that that for those players and those chances you would have typically scored. It's a huge thing to identify, because in the latter case, you just want to leave it and just keep creating those chances, because it'll come through, it'll come good in all likelihood. But in the former, that's way. You could have exactly the same amount of shots, and all the stats could all be the same, but the nature of the chances are just different chances, and it could be even the same chances, but just falling to the wrong players. And just identifying that is a huge deal. Being able to know the difference in regards to, is it correct to not change anything, or is it correct to change something? Because if you change anything, there's an inherent risk involved. But that risk can be worth it if things are not working. In summary, you can have same shots, exactly the same shots from exactly the same places, the same possession, the same this, the same that. And it can just be totally different, because just the players standing in the spots that took the shots are just different players. And the way that they're defending and marking and whatever, and they're just denying the type of chances you want for the type of players you want them to fall into, versus giving that up. Yeah. So anyway, it's the type of thing that it's very difficult to you can't just watch a match and play a tactic for the first time, and it's just not something you can possibly understand. um, without putting the effort in. If you play the same team over and over and over again, and over hundreds or even thousands of matches over a lot of time, you play in the same systems and this and that, and you get familiarity with your players. You get to know that this is how this player scores. You get to know that this is how he misses. Like, you get a feel, basically. I think that's the best way to put it. You get a feel for these things. I know, for example, that for that guy, that's a good chance. We want that chance to fall to that guy. But there are other players in our team where it looks like, don't you want that chance to fall to everybody? Well, no, not really. Like, yeah, in a vacuum, if the choice is between like that or no chance to nobody, sure. But there is a huge difference between that chance to falling to someone with good finishing composure and someone who doesn't. It's just huge, because like there's a difference between that chance being scored a high percentage of the time to that chance being scored a moderate percentage of the time, or even a low percentage. Low, but not particularly high, moderate. It's just, and that becomes, in the case of sitters, it can matter because they can be really frustrating or whatever. But as you get to like more and more and more difficult chances, that concept matters more and more and more. There are certain players that they could have 100 shots from the edge of the box, the corner of the box here, and miss all of them. And there are other players that may score 1 out of 5. Huge difference. Right, with 3 up, I kind of feel like we won. I guess we just won't do that change yet, but I guess we will do a change of some description. Let's just resume. We are going to make a couple changes. I think we want to give some minutes to. I think this is that central midfielder, and I don't know, maybe the goalkeeper. I think the reality is that we will graduate a goalkeeper, like in all likelihood, and then we'll just use them. But it's possible we don't, because obviously, however much we think those players are good or whatever, and they could well be, it's also possible that we may just come across some other better players. So it's possible we don't end up graduating a keeper. In the case we don't, and if we don't buy one, which is also quite plausible for all sorts of reasons, then we won't have enough, and we will get a random one signed, but it's just random, and it won't be good. And then it's possible that our current horrible keeper that's 20, that'll be 21 next season, is going to be better than whatever this other random keeper is that we end up with. So it's possible and then we'll have to buy a keeper for our youth team, and then that's also possible that may not happen on the first day. It may not happen in the first week. And quite frankly, I don't know if we will just be okay conceptually to move to promotion. So as long as we're doing that, we won't feel any real urgency to have to buy a keeper for our youth team as well. So we'll hold off. So I think, in a roundabout way, what I'm saying is that this really horrible 20-year-old keeper that's sitting on the bench at the moment, this Shill guy, he can end up playing a lot. That was like pretty nice, to be honest. He could end up playing a lot next season. He could end up not playing. Yeah, it's a possibility. I think we just have to factor that in mind. So giving him a few matches to get a few development points to get a bit better training options next season. It's not, it's marginal, but not nothing. Yeah, really good chances. I just, we win. I don't know. It's quite similar to the other matches, to be honest. Just the main difference in this one is that, it's 5-0 instead of 2-1. Pretty much. And that's the thing, right? Like, we're really unlucky. We win 2-1. We're, a little bit lucky / whatever. Not that lucky, normal, whatever. And we win 5-0. And that's, it's very important conceptually that we get unlucky and that we're still winning. We're not, by lucky, I mean, there's a whole separate thing about, we could cover that maybe. It's an interesting one to talk to Steve. There's a whole separate, you talk about luck a lot, but the thing is, luck, it's not it is kind of like an abstract concept, but it's not entirely. It's something that we can discuss in detail, actually. And it's something that's very interesting in regards to football as a sport, specifically, because of the low frequency of scoring events, basically. Like, unlike basketball or other sports where, like, the scores end like 100 to 110 or 20 or whatever, In football, they can often end 1-0, 0-0 or whatever, and a lot is hinged on those defining moments that lead to the goals. Whereas in a sport like basketball, if you have a team that's just like in the FA Cup, for example, a team from a low division can beat a team in a high division, but in a sport like basketball, never, ever. Just a team that's just materially way better is just going to win 100 times out of 100, and that's also one of the reasons why football is awesome, is because you just, no matter what, pretty much doesn't matter. It's in the World Cup, whatever, doesn't matter. Like, you could have the best team, the worst team. You could have a European Championships. You could have, well, literally, right? You can have Greece. What was there, 16 teams in those European Championships, and they were the 16th worst odds. They were the worst team as far as betting. They had the longest odds, whatever. They were the least likely team to win it, and they won it. And that's the whole competition, let alone just one match. At the end of the day, like, when a match starts in football, both teams can hold genuine hope that they can get a result out of that match. And that's great about football, because it's not true for many other sports. But anyway, especially when, a lot of other sports, the reason why you have that level of uncertainty that both teams can win is because, you know, the league structures and whatnot have to be constructed in such a way that there are not teams playing against other teams that are like, 10 divisions above them or whatever. But anyway, right. Thanks for watching. Catch you for the next one.